On today's episode, we're going to dive deep into what we as high performers and overachievers may be able to tease out from a child's daily routine. Hey there, welcome back to yet again another episode of the Upgrade My Rituals podcast. My name is Kevin McKellar, the host, and this is the show for stressed out overachievers who are looking to design the ideal day, to craft this day where their head hits the pillow at the end of the night and they feel really great about what they did, what they accomplished, and what trajectory their life is actually on. They're holistically looking at their career and their finances and their family life and their body and their mind and being able to actually quote unquote fit it all in. And that's what I help overachievers and high performance type of people that are looking to get out of life. But I was thinking about my history as actually a formal educator and now as a parent, and I looked at kind of what kids do and what a child's day looks like, and if there's anything specifically that we can actually steal from these routines that a kid all has. And we all know what those are, right? And we'll kind of go through them today. But if you've noticed, last week we had on Keith Senzer talking about youth empowerment and leadership. And today, obviously, we're going to be teasing into this leverage point if we can steal some of these routines for ourselves. And next week, we're going to go really deep with another guest into how we can actually, learn and craft routines for children. So all the parents and teachers out there, that might be a good episode for you to listen into as well. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, I would love you to obviously subscribe today. That would be great. Hit the bell notification so you'd be notified of every time the new episode drops. And if you are already subscribed, thank you so much and welcome back. So like I said, today we're going to look at a kid's day, and this can be many different ages. Most likely when they hit, high school, they're kind of hitting their own, kind of calling their own shots on the day-to-day and the routines, if you will, saying you have a specific bedtime to a 16-year-old might be a little tricky, but, we're going to be looking at these routines for, I would say, anywhere from a toddler to, 6th, 7th grade, maybe something like that. And the more you establish these routines for a child, I think the more they'll be able to recognize the benefits and then obviously keep them going throughout not only their high school years, but maybe even to their collegiate years, and just see the value that you as a parent has taught them. So let's take a look. Let's map out a child's day. So what do? We're going to start actually at the night. They have a bedtime. That's the classic thing, right? We're a very meta episode today. We are actually on the 6th day of sleep training my 1-year-old. And I will tell you, if anybody is looking to sleep train their children, it is already 6 days in, already a tremendous benefit. I think it's just awesome. You got to rip the Band-Aid off emotionally that first night when they're screaming for a few hours, but it already 6 days in and she's asleep within 15 minutes. It's amazing. I'm going to leave the link to Taking Cara Babies in the description. That is the course we signed up for. It's fantastic, so you might want to check that out. But either way, they have a bedtime. And, they wake up whatever time in the morning, and they have this morning routine, like kind of we do, right? They might not be working on their personal growth as a human being just yet because they have that throughout their whole day. But, we teach them, you get dressed, put the right socks on, put the shoes in the right feet, eat breakfast, get your things to school already. If you haven't done that the night before, usually that would be done the night before, obviously. But certain things like that, just kind of have a simple morning routine. And then they go to school. And what do they do when they go to school? Well, they have their cubbies and they have a whole system. And now I think it's more than ever very intense. It used to be like hang your backpack up, hang your coat up in your cubby, and, put your homework in the homework folder or something, and that was it. Now I think there's quite a bit of routine, right? And even throughout the day, not just the first thing in the morning, but throughout the day, we have, the helpers and the line leaders. Oh, line leaders. Oh, memory lane, right? And there's so many systems in place because why is this? Well, kids thrive on structure, systems, and of course routines. So I think these are all very structured throughout the day, but of course they really have a lot of processing in the morning. At the end of the day, it kind of gets crazy. But then when we get home, what do sometimes, which I will be doing, and my parents actually didn't do this to me, and I see the benefits now retrospectively. My mom was such a sweetheart. She just wanted me to have fun because she loved me so much. So I totally get it. But we ask our kids to do homework first thing when they get home. That has a tremendous amount of benefits. And then of course we have nighttime routine, right? So there's a lot of, hours of free time obviously in there. And then we have nighttime, right? So, after dinner, what do? We brush our teeth, we get in our little PJs, have, maybe watch something on TV if you allow that, read a book or whatever, right? Play a game, whatever it is. So there's so many different little routines for kids that we as teachers, parents, adults can and usually do implement with them. Now, what I want to do on today's episode is look at 4 benefits that we can actually look into this deeply and really use and or reflect on our own ritual design, on our fundamental 4 that we just talked about the last few episodes, right? So what is the first big thing that we are teaching these kids, and we can also reevaluate for ourselves, is that we value, as people, we value sleep and self-care, right? We have a bedtime. There's a reason, because we need a certain amount of sleep, hours of sleep. We want to make sure that we're healthy and refreshed for the next day. And, self-care, obviously, this is why we eat a healthy dinner, because if we don't, we feel like crap and right? So the reason why we ask ourselves this is because oftentimes our PM routine could be leveraged a little too hard for work. And that to me is something that I have a challenge on, because I have a block that is part of my PM routine that's 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And it's actually literally what I'm doing right now is recording this is in my block that I work on Upgrade. Now from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, it's 2 hours. I'm cranking, I'm working, I'm editing, I'm putting out content, I'm working on the website, do all this stuff. I'm really excited. And 10 o'clock hits. And the rest of my routine is supposed to unfold then. And I'm supposed to slow down and shut off from the business end of it. It is extremely hard to do because I have so much momentum built. But I have to remember that if I don't literally sit and plan my day for the next day for 5 minutes, if I don't make my tea and, organize my clothes for the next day and prep the coffee machine and actually sit down and have 15 to 20 minutes with my wife, those are all self-care things that are very important, but sometimes are overlooked because for me personally, I'm so in the moment, right? Now, it could be the opposite. Maybe you are somebody who doesn't have a PM routine yet and is just literally, flipping through Netflix for hours and realize it's like, all right, 11:30 at night, I really got to go to sleep. But let me just scroll down YouTube for another 3 hours, right? And fall down the YouTube rabbit hole. Either way, we teach our kids that we value sleep and self-care. So that's the first point. Secondly, we teach our kids to capture and organize physical items. And this is pertaining more so when they get to school and they get home from school, really, right? So when we get to school, we don't just shed our backpack and our coat and let our, teacher or our parents pick it up. No, we take our coat, we go to the little cubby thing and, put the homework in the homework folder and all these things, right? When we get home, we don't do the same thing. We don't flip our shoes off. I mean, they may do that, and that may be a different conversation, but the routine is supposed to be, okay, you take your coat off, hang up your coat, put your shoes in the cubby thing, and put your backpack here and start your homework, right? And I'll make you a little after school snack or something. So we value that we value the capturing of physical items and organizing of the physical items, because clearly you and I both know that if we don't, then this is when our office just gets to be a mess and we don't know where a single piece of paper is that we need. Oh, that bill didn't get paid because that goes under those papers, and that, didn't get processed for work because it was under there. And if we don't have domain over our physical space, we don't have domain over our mental space. It really is one and the same. So that's another thing that we teach kids, and that we can really kind of double up and reflect on ourselves. The third point here is that we teach children to leverage and prioritize our time after, work for us, but after school for them. So that thing we talked about earlier on, I knew a friend. Well, I had a friend named Billy down the block. He lived 5 houses down where I grew up, and I always thought it was like kind of geeky that he was like a nerd. Like he had to do his homework right away when we went to school, and I was out skateboarding, like being a badass, And I thought that for a long time, and now I look at that and I was like, nice job, Mom. Good job. Because granted, it wasn't his decision to do it, but it was the routine. See, when we have a routine, sometimes even especially as kids, we just follow the routine, right? We're not developed yet until our teenager years to start questioning and rebelling against society, right? So we just go through the motions. And hopefully, again, we can see some of those benefits, because I remember many times I was up way too late trying to cram in the homework that I didn't do at 3:30, 4 o'clock when I got home. And obviously the point is that we don't know how long that homework's going to take. We don't know how long that essay is going to take to write, or we don't know how long we really need to study for that test. So the thing here is I'm trying to correlate to our lives as professionals is that time that we can leverage after work is very, very important, because it comes down to priorities. If we fall to the wayside and the child's version of, hit the streets and start skateboarding with your buddies, which equates to us as flipping on Netflix and vegging out for 2 hours, the problem is that, again, that window of time can be special because we can leverage it for something that we want to do, and/or we can prioritize things that mean something to us. We can get things done. For instance, my after work routine, I actually meditate in that point. And it's very tricky because that is the routine is difficult to execute because there's a lot of variables that day-to-day things change. I may have to cook dinner earlier because we're doing this later or whatever. So it is a tricky routine to do, but it is a very important thing, because for me, meditating at the end of the day is kind of important because it refreshes me for I call the next shift, right? The next nightly shift of cooking dinner, being present with my family, getting to work, and then, winding down for the night. So either way, we teach them to leverage and prioritize that time after work or after school. And lastly, the fourth and final point that I want to correlate between a child's routine and our routines is that it's way better to execute and actually get the routine done than it is to not. Now, that doesn't mean we have to be perfect. It doesn't mean we're going to slip up and fail. I mean, there's many routines almost every single week that I don't hit perfectly spot on. That's not the point. It's not it's called the ideal day for a reason, not the perfect day or the precise day, right? It's the ideal day. We ideally want to execute all the things in our routines, but we may not be able to. It's way better for kids to get their routines done. It is way better to get to bed on time and to actually get the right amount of sleep, because we all know what happens after that. They're monsters the next day. It's way better not to eat a whole bunch of sugar, because they are, once again, monsters about an hour after for probably quite some time after that. it is way better to do the homework right after school, because we all of a sudden realize, whoa, this is taking way longer than I thought. And then, granted, I didn't get to see my friends that day, but like, I feel way better about getting things done that I need to, being prepared for the test the next day, because you know what? I'm always going to be able to see my friends, always. But having that guilt going into school the next day, you all know it. We've all been there. We've all done it at least once or twice, maybe me a little bit more. We're having that guilt of not being prepared for whatever. It's just the worst feeling, but it's the best feeling when you actually go into school and you have everything ready to rock. So, same thing with us, right? When we execute our routines, when we go through our ritual design and execute the AM, the BW, the AW, and the PM, and we really execute the keystone routine on the weekends, we look at our actuators and look at our clogs and recognize them and put value towards them. You're on fire. You're on fire. You feel so good that you're actually making progress in all these areas in your life. Because again, we think as society that you can only focus on one or maybe two things. No, if you have a system in place, you could focus on all the areas of your life. But you have to have a very diligent and strategic system in order to do that. You can't just put the pedal to the metal and just hope for the best. You have to have a strategy in order to every single day be able to say, I worked on my body, I worked on my mental state, I spend time with my family, and I check that box, for lack of a better word. I spend time on my career. I spend time developing my professional self. You can do all those things. It's just trickier than it's trickier to do without a system than it is with. So that is today's episode. It is an interesting look into a child's day and a routine, and some of the areas that we can really pull from and hopefully leverage for ourselves. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this episode, please hit the like button. And of course, if you aren't subscribed, hit the subscribe button so you'll be here and part of the Upgrade community. And of course, hit that bell notification to be notified of the next episode. Thank you so much for watching today. And I will see you next week on the Upgrade My Rituals podcast.